Good afternoon, my name is Camden. Welcome back to 126 of you, and welcome if you are here for the first time. You can feel free to click the subscribe button at any point in this video, but I'll remind you again at the end in case you forget. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my most anticipated releases for the spring season, that being March, April, and May. I like to do these videos seasonally because I like to organize all of my reading seasonally, so it just works out that way. I have 20 books and their descriptions to get through, so I'm just gonna hop right into that now. The first book on my most anticipated list is The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi by S.A. Chakraborty. This book is following our main character Amina, who is one of the most notorious ex-pirates on the Indian Ocean. Amina is forced to come out of her retirement when she receives a job offer that she finds very intriguing at a price that she cannot refuse. Her task is to retrieve a girl who has been kidnapped and return her safely to her family. Of course, I'm expecting that there's going to be a lot of misadventures on the way, and our main character of Amina sounds like she's going to be such a fun, eccentric main character, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I feel like it might be one of the best books of the year, so this one recently came out on March 2nd. The next book on this list is Wayward by Amelia Hart. This book is following 3 generations of women in the same family across 5 different centuries. I believe all 3 of these stories kind of focus and center around their ancestral home called Wayward Cottage, and I believe that all 3 stories have kind of an underlying theme of witchcraft or nature magic involved. I don't really know much more about the plot of this story than that, but it does sound quite intriguing to me, and the cover of this one is super beautiful, so I'm really excited to read this one. This one was also released recently. It just came out on March 7th. Next is The London Seance Society by Sarah Penner. This is the author of The Lost Apothecary, which is a book that came out a few years ago and was very popular at the time. Budeline Dallaire is a spiritualist who specializes in speaking with the dead in order to help solve their murders. And Lena is her new apprentice, who is very much in need of Budeline's services in order to help solve her own sister's murder. This book is following 2 different murder mystery plot lines, as well as a group of high society men in London known as the Seance Society. I really enjoy books that delve into the occult, so I'm super excited to read this one as soon as possible. It also just came out on March 7th. The next book on my list is The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. This one is a cozy mystery that is set against the backdrop of a baking competition show. We are following 6 contestants who have been cast to be on the show's 10th season. However, things start to become very competitive as the contestants start to try and sabotage each other by replacing sugar with salt or turning up the heat on each other's ovens. Things quickly start to escalate though when a body is discovered. I have never personally read a cozy mystery because I find that adding some cutesy to murder can be done a bit tastelessly. However, this book just sounds like it's going to be your typical whodunit kind of mystery, but also with Great British Bake Off vibes. So I'm interested to see how I feel about this one and if I find the mix of the cozy and the murder to be what I deem acceptable. This one is also coming out on March 7th. The next book on my list is What Have We Done by Alex Finley. I'm just gonna read the description on this one to you guys. A stay-at-home mom with a past, a has-been rock star with a habit, a reality TV producer with a debt. 3 desperate lives, 1 deadly secret. 25 years ago, Jenna, Donnie, and Nico were the best of friends, having forged a bond through the abuse and neglect they endured as residents of Savior House, a group home for parentless teens. When the home was shut down after the disappearance of several kids, the 3 were split up. Though the trauma of their childhood has never left them, each went on to live accomplished if troubled lives. They haven't seen one another since they were teens, but now are reunited for a single haunting reason. Someone is trying to kill them. To survive, the group will have to revisit the nightmares of their childhood and confront their shared past, a past that holds secrets as to why someone wants them dead. It's a reunion none of them asked for or wanted, but it may be the only way to save all of their lives. Goodreads also states that this one is a mix between an edge-of-your-seat thriller and a coming-of-age story, which sounds great to me, so I can't wait to read it. It came out again on March 7th. The next book on this list is Flower Heart by Catherine Bakewell. This one is a debut novel, I believe, and I didn't really get a great sense of what this one is supposed to be about from the description, but Goodreads does say that it is a cottagecore fantasy and that it's for fans of Tamora Pierce, both of which are things that I love. So I feel like it's going to be a good fit for me. I'm really excited to read this one. It came out on March 14th. The next book on this list is an isolation horror, and that is The Broken Places by Blaine Daigle. When Rin Burdett inherits his family's old hunting cabin deep in the Yukon wilderness, he wants to say no. Nothing much is left in that place except for unpleasant memories and the smoke of old burns. But after a tragic year, he sees a weekend trip to the cabin with his best friends as a way to recuperate and begin again. But there is something strange about these woods. As a winter storm moves in, the animals begin acting strangely and natural laws of the wilderness seem to fall apart. Then the soft voices start whispering through the trees. Something is watching them. As the storm gets worse and the woods get darker, the three friends must dive into the darkest waters of the Burdett lineage, because the horrible truth is deep, resting in the shadowed places no one wants to look. It may just be the fact that there is a deer on the cover of this book, but this one kind of reminds me of The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, which is a horror novel that I read a few years ago and enjoyed. So I'm excited to read this one. It comes out on March 24th. Which I think is the day that this video goes up. Next is The Fairy Bargains of Prospect Hill by Rowena Miller. Our main character in this book, Aline, is one of the few people left who still believes in the Fae and continues to bargain with them in order to get some extra help. When she finds out that her sister is going to be entering into an abusive marriage, Aline turns to the Fae in order to help save her sister. Obviously though, when it comes to the Fae, the higher the stakes are, the steeper the price is going to be. The description of this one on Goodreads focused a lot of attention on talking about the town in this book and how these beliefs have been passed down from generation to generation and how things have changed over time as society becomes more advanced. So I have a feeling that the setting and the backdrop of this one is going to be very rich and atmospheric. So I'm excited to check this one out. It comes out on March 28th. The next book that I'm excited for is Blood Debts by Terry J. Benton Walker. This book is set in New Orleans in the aftermath of a very vicious massacre on magical practitioners. We are following twins Christina and Clement Trudeau. The twins both practice different types of magic and seemingly have very different views on magic, but they have to put their differences aside and try and work together in order to protect their family from whoever it is that is trying to harm them and eradicate magic. The description of this book really reminds me of Blood Like Magic by Liselle Sambury, which is a duology that I read very recently and really enjoyed. So I'm excited to pick up another book that's kind of runs in a similar vein. And obviously New Orleans is always such a vibrant setting, especially for a witchcraft book, so I'm really pumped to read this one. It comes out on April 4th. The next book on my most anticipated list for the spring is House of Cotton by Monica Brashears. 19 years old, broke, and effectively an orphan, Magnolia doesn't have much to look forward to. She feels stuck and haunted by her overdrawn bank account, by her predatory landlord, by the ghost of her late grandmother, Mama Brown. One night while working at her dead-end gas station job, a mysterious slick stranger named Cotton walks in and offers to turn Magnolia's luck around. He offers her a lucrative modeling job at his family's funeral home. Magnolia accepts, but despite things looking up, Magnolia's problems fatten along with her wallet. When Cotton's requests become increasingly weird, Magnolia discovers there's a lot more at stake than just her rent. Sharp as a belted knife, this sly social commentary cuts straight to the bone, revealing the aftermath of the American plantation and what it means to be poor, black, and a woman in the God-fearing South. This book sounds so freaking good. Somebody needs to put this on Jordan Peele's desk because I feel like he could direct a killer movie for this one. It comes out on April 4th, and I cannot wait to pick it up. The next book on my list is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. Fonda Lee is the author of the Jade City series, which I haven't personally read, but I've heard a lot of great things about. This book is following our main character, Esther, who lost her mother and her brother in a manticore attack. Esther's obsession with revenge leads her to join an elite group of warriors who ride on rocks. Bird rock, not an actual rock, just to clarify, and hunt down manticores. I wouldn't say that high fantasy is necessarily out of my comfort zone, but it's just been quite a number of years since I've read an epic high fantasy to the degree that this one is. I've tended to more gravitate towards low fantasy books or books with fantasy elements to them in recent years. So I'm excited to kind of pick this one up and see if high fantasy is a path that I should walk down. And this one sounds like it's going to be pretty original with a bit of a twist on the typical creatures that I see in a fantasy novel. So I'm really excited to read this one as well. It comes out on April 11th. The next book on my list is Atalanta by Jennifer Saint. I feel like I've talked about this one so often in recent videos. I talked about it in my 5-star predictions video and in my spring TBR video, so I'm gonna keep the description of this one pretty brief in this video. This one is another Greek mythology retelling, and it is following the character of Atalanta from the story of Atalanta and the Golden Apples. I've read quite a few Greek mythology retellings in the past few years. I feel like I see a lot of repeat characters across the different books, so I'm excited to have a book that features a character that I have not seen in any other books so far. So really excited to read this one. It comes out on April 13th. The next book on this list is You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. If you watch the movie Barbarian, this book sounds like exactly what I expected that movie to be before the breastfeeding started. If you didn't watch the movie Barbarian, this book is following a main character named Grace, who rents an Airbnb in Wyoming in order to escape the bustle of New York life. While she is there, Grace begins developing a relationship with Calvin, the owner of the Airbnb. However, between the woman who recently went missing from the area and Calvin's growing obsession with her, Grace starts to believe that everything is not as it seems in this situation. Honestly, I have been having such a rough time with thrillers lately. I just cannot seem to find a good one. So hopefully this is the one that kind of turns the tide for me. I'm really excited to read it. It comes out on April 25th. The next book on my list is The Lake House by Sarah Beth Durst. I have read a fantasy novel from this author before, but I have never read a thriller from her. Claire's grown up triple-checking locks, counting her steps, second-guessing every decision. It's just how she's wired. Her worst-case scenarios never actually come true. Until she arrives at an off-the-grid summer camp to find a blackened, burned husk instead of a lodge, and no survivors, except her and 2 other late arrivals, Reva and Mariana. When the 3 girls find a dead body in the woods, they realize none of this is an accident. Something is hunting them. Something that hides in the shadows. Something that refuses to let them leave. I love a good summer camp thriller, so I'm excited to read this one. It comes out also on April 25th. Also coming out on April 25th is That Selfsame Metal by Brittany N. Williams. There are certain tropes or themes that I am just an absolute sucker for and will have me automatically adding books to my TBR shelf, and this one checks a lot of those boxes. It features West African mythology, as our main character has been blessed by the Orisha. It features Shakespeare and his troupe, the Kingsmen, as our main character Joan is in charge of maintaining their prop swords. It features forging magic, and it features a behind-the-scenes battle between Fae and humans that our main character's family has been monitoring for generations. I am honestly so friggin' stoked to read this book. It sounds so amazing and like it's gonna be so up my alley. Like I said, this one comes out April 25th. The next book on my list is a thriller, and that is The Night Flowers by Sarah Herkenroder. This book is following two women who are looking into the case of 3 Jane Does who were found in a New Mexican national park. One is a veteran detective who is quickly approaching her retirement, and the other is a librarian who thinks she may have unlocked the identities of the 3 Does. I don't think I've ever read a thriller where Jane Does are featured and where figuring out the victim's identity is a significant part of the story. So I feel like that already adds a layer of originality to this thriller in a genre that can be very formulaic at times. So I'm excited to read this one and see what I think. It comes out on May 2nd. The next book on my list is Isles of the Gods by Amie Kaufman. I have had a bit of a rocky relationship with Amie Kaufman and her books over the years. Sometimes I really love her books and they work really well for me, and sometimes I find them to be a bit corny and adolescent. As a result, I'm a little bit on the fence about this book. It features some things that I really enjoy, like a quest across the sea and sailing and a battle between gods, but it also features a enemies to lovers relationship with a very spoiled prince, which could be really hit or miss for me. I know this doesn't sound like a very ringing endorsement, but I am still excited to check this one out. I'm just keeping my expectations reasonable. This one is also coming out on May 2nd. Next is No One Needs to Know by Lindsay Cameron. When an anonymous neighborhood forum gets hacked, the darkest secrets of New York's wealthiest residents come to light, including some worth killing for. It was all confidential right up until the moment when it wasn't. Urban myth. It was lauded as an alternative to the performative show your best self platforms, an anonymous discussion board grouped by zip code. The residents of Manhattan's exclusive Upper East Side disclosed it all. Things they would never share with their friends or their spouses, secret bank accounts, steamy affairs, tidbits of juicy gossip. These are the same parents who would go to astonishing lengths to ensure their children gain admission to the most prestigious boarding schools and universities. So when a hacktivist group breaks into the forum and exposes the real identity behind each poster, the repercussions resound around Park Avenue with a force none could have anticipated. And someone will end up dead. I love a story about dysfunctional rich people, so I'm really excited to read this one. It kind of gives me vibes of The Watchful Eye, which is a new Hulu show that I've been watching. So I'm really excited to read this one. It comes out on May 9th. The next book on my list comes out on my birthday, and that is All the Dead Lie Down by Kyrie McCauley. This book sounds like it's going to be my favorite brand of weird, unsettling horror. We are following a main character named Marin, who, following her mother's death, is offered a position as the nanny to the children of a very notorious horror author. This book sounds like it's going to feature a lot of things that I love, including a very creepy and atmospheric house, peculiar and precocious children, and a very reclusive writer. I feel like we have such an amazing lineup of books coming out this spring, and it's got me so pumped about reading in general. So I'm super excited about this one. I'm going to treat myself on my birthday and buy it the day it comes out. And the final book on my list of most anticipated releases for the spring is Threads That Bind by Kika Hatzopoulou. This book is loosely based on Greek mythology, but it's not a retelling of any particular myth. We are following a main character named Io, who is a descendant of the Fates. Like her ancestors, Io can see the threads that bind people to each other and to their destinies. Io uses this gift in her line of work as a private investigator. However, when she comes across multiple victims who have had their life threads maimed by an unknown assailant, Io has to team up with some random dude that she'll probably fall in love with in order to figure out what is going on. This book sounds like it's going to be really fun, and we all know how I feel about Greek mythology at this point. I think it's going to be interesting to see a Greek mythology book that's a bit of a twist on the retellings that we've been getting a lot of recently. So really excited to read this one. It comes out on May 30th. That is all of the books that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I hope you you were able to add some of these to your TBR. Let me know down in the comments if there are some books that you are super excited for that I may have missed, as some books always definitely fall through the cracks for me. And I will see you guys in a new video next week. Goodbye.